Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Chem 1211 Lab with your host, Dr. White. And today I'll be introducing what you'll be doing in a lab. And we'll go over, first of all, syllabus and what's in a lab. And then I'll go over the first safety lab. I apologize. Usually I try and get it done earlier. I looked about 15, 20 minutes ago and said, oh no, I didn't put the actual lab in uh, Blackboard. It's now there. You don't need it for today. It's a handout, but in the future, I'll try and get it done up and available for you to download the Monday or Tuesday before the lab, which you have on Thursday. And a couple things, the way I do lab, whether it's here or face-to-face, is usually the first half hour, 40 minutes or so, I will go through problem set. So next Thursday, I will go through problem set 2 in the lab. And I'll do the same thing for the second section, which I'll have tomorrow. And after we do the problem set, then I'll do what I call my introduction or setup for the lab. In the case of Labz, I'll show you how to tips how to do the actual lab online, and then you can do it on yourself. I'm not going to say you have to do it now during this time frame, because what happens if you're having computer or internet problems, which does happen. And also, I'll stick around to answer any questions after lab. Thank you for letting me know. I'll switch cameras. Oh no, I'm too bright. But anyways, I'm going to work on this today and tomorrow again. It's frustrating, but so what I'd like to start out first today is let's go through the syllabus and talk about labs in general. And hopefully you all see on the screen the syllabus lab. Do you see that? Thumbs up, people? Thank you. All right. Now, first of all, I have this here. You're not supposed to copy labs for someone who already did it last semester, and you really should do it alone. Normally, if we're in the lab, you'd have a lab partner you'd work with. And now you're not. Now, the labs are worth 21% of your total points, which I mentioned the other day. In terms of your grade is a sum of your three highest test scores. I can scroll up here. If you see right here, your percentage, which calculates your grade, is the sum of your three highest test scores, your final exam, and now I'll be talking about your lab total points and extra credit I'll talk about way later in the semester. So the lab is important toward your grade. Each lab experiment is worth 10 points. There are going to be 14 labs. I'm going to take the top 13 out of 14. So if for some reason you can't do a lab, or you just bomb a lab, meaning not get a good score, that will be your drop one. Now, this is important. Lab reports are due the next lab section after the session for which the lab report is being handed in. And so today's lab, we're going to do a safety lab, is due next Thursday, and I'll show you in a second. Now, you get 0 points for a lab if you don't hand in the lab report. Even if you show up here, you still have to. And I do this the same as if we were in COD face-to-face. Another thing, because I have a lot of labs to grade, I can't wait until somebody shows up, hands it in 2 or 3 weeks later. Right now, each week, I have about 65 labs to grade from all the classes I'm teaching, and I can't have people handing in things late. I sort of tried that last semester, and it was a monumental failure. And really, it didn't work well. So I've instituted what I normally do face-to-face. You get 0 points for lab report that's more than 2 days late. In other words, you got a whole week to do the lab and hand it in. Now, how do you hand in a lab? If you go to Blackboard, and I'm in student view, so this is what you would see. You see over here, everybody see Blackboard assignments on your screen? Thank you. And what you have over here, where my cursor is, assignments. When you click on that, you'll see assignments. And this is where I have, you should also be working on signing your signature sheet. In terms of lab safety, there are 2 files you can download. They're the same. One is a Word document, the other is PDF. And then later on, I've never done this, let's see if it works. Here, you can upload your test, not your test, your lab. Also, your test and final will be the same way, and you'll upload it. Notice it shows you the due date. It's due by the end of lab next Thursday. I have 11:30, and it's worth 10 points. And if I click back on assignments, I'll take me, and you can download these from here. Everybody see the syllabus again? Thank you. All right, now I have here the lab schedule. Too small. And here's the lab schedule. And these are the dates. And today, as you see, we'll be doing lab safety lab and introduction to Beyond Lab Z. I have a handout which you download. Anywhere you see anything in here where it says notes, like the Lab Z PDF and the instructor handout, it will be attached in the assignment area. Now, next week's lab will be the density lab. That will be in Lab Z and also on my handout. The following week will be estimating the calorie content of a nut. There's a Lab Z component in the handout, and similarly through the whole semester. If you notice on 4/1, that's during spring break, and we won't have any lab. And the lab you do in week 9 will be due on week 11 lab. So you'll actually have 2 weeks there to do it. And these are all labs you'll be doing. Now, word to the wise, I don't know why, and that is that, let me, try some, I don't know why I'm having a problem with this, but I'll repin. All right, word to the wise. Labs are 10 points each. Notice my eyes are 10 big ones. My labs, the way I have it, there's no pre-lab ever. The questions in the Lab Z handout, you'll never do. I'll do my own questions. And all you have to do is look at, put down data, if you take data, into my handout from Lab Z, and also answer some questions. Most of the write-ups, lab reports for my labs, shouldn't take you more than 20 minutes to do, if that long. And if you have any problems, what do? Well, remember, there's no such thing as a dumb question on my class, so you can always ask questions after lab, and you can also come to my office hours Monday and Wednesday nights. Now, important part of the lab is safety. Now, we're not working in a lab in terms of you're not going to physically be handling chemicals. And normally at this point, I would be showing you about a 40-minute video on safety if we were face to face. Good news, I'm not going to show it to you, but I am going to cover some important points. And when we talk about safety, one of the most important things is protecting your eyes. And glasses alone won't do it. At COD, you have to wear safety goggles, not glasses, and these protect your eyes. And if we were face to face, you'd have to go out and buy them. And I'd tell you where to buy them. You can buy them at the bookstore if you had to. You don't have to this semester. Or you can go to Home Depot or Menards or Lowe's. They sell them a lot cheaper than the bookstore. And that protects your eyes. Back when I was in grad school in a lab across this hall from where I was, someone I knew quite well, he was doing an experiment. This is in a research lab, very dangerous experiment, but he did it like 50 times and he rushed it. And it was dangerous and he did something wrong and it blew up in his face. And luckily he had his safety goggles on. And I waited with his wife in the emergency room, and the surgeon came out and said, your husband's lucky. If he hadn't had his safety glasses on or goggles on, I'd tell you he's blind now, and he wasn't. Luckily he had them. But on his face, he had about 300 stitches, each 2 or 3, so they healed up. And that taught me a lesson about the safety of eye protection. And when we teach in school at COD, I enforce it because I know what happens if you don't. So that's an important thing. Now, another thing is if we're in a lab, I'd say you shouldn't be eating food or drinking anything in a lab because that can get contaminated by chemicals and that could harm you. So that's another thing you should remember, never eat or drink in the lab. Now, in the safety video, they teach you how to handle glass door safely. Important tip, which is good for your home too. Whenever you're using anything that's glass, before you heat up anything in it, especially like in a microwave, even I do that, I look to see are there any cracks or stars, because that can break when you don't want it to break. Now, the rest of the video shows you how to use a Bunsen burner and other stuff like that. And I'm not going to go into that. All right, everybody see lab number 1 safety on the screen? Thumbs up, thank you. All right, now this you'll be able to download after a class. You don't need it today. Part of this was written by another instructor, and then I've added to it. Now, when you have a chance, if you want, watch this YouTube video. You don't have to, but if you want to. But the important thing is when you're working in a lab, and we don't have to do it with the Labz, but if you were face to face, you should always wear long pants and a shirt that covers your torso and closed shoes. Wear splash goggles, otherwise known as the goggles, and we provide gloves. Now, this was written when we last semester had a chem kit that students tried at home, which didn't work out well. In the lab, we don't wear aprons. If you are working in a lab and you have long hair, you should tie it back, because otherwise it can either get in chemicals that will destroy your hair, or if you're using a Bunsen burner, you can set it on fire. In fact, years ago, when I was teaching in grad school, I had a student lean over a Bunsen burner, even though she had her hair tied back with ponytail or some of it, and it got into the fire in the Bunsen burner and it caught fire. Luckily, I was standing right next to her when I had it, pulled her back, went like this on her hair, and she only lost about that much of her ponytail. Very lucky. Hair is very flammable. And really what this is trying to say, now they say remove dangling scarves, yes. Any jewelry you should put underneath in case it knocks over things. You don't have to take off rings because you're wearing gloves. And in the lab, you would see this diagram. And it would show you what to wear. And we do enforce it at COD. And it's for your safety. Now, here's some more videos if you want to watch. You don't have to on safety. We're not using a Bunsen burner at home, safety equipment. But this is important, and it's also important. If you ever get anything on yourself, chemicals, you should always use water to get rid of it. If you ever get chemicals in your eyes, wash it, flush it. At COD, we have eye wash fountains. And yes, unfortunately, I've had to use it with students because they didn't follow my directions. And I teach in the lab, in the video, how to, that the instructor should always clean up broken glass. If you ever do it, use a broom and a brush pen, not your hands, because you'll cut yourself. And you should teach in the lab, in the video, how to use a fire extinguisher. Now, important thing for using a fire extinguisher is, and you should have one in your kitchen for sure, the dry chemical. If you have a fire, always spray at the base of the fire, not the top, and that will help put it out. Now, when I was in industry, because I went to the plant often, the different companies I worked for, was part of my job was to start up new production and also go and solve problems. I was given training how to use a fire extinguisher, and it was quite exciting. Think of a pan about 6 feet long and about 4 feet wide and about this high, filled with gasoline. They set it on fire, give you one of those hand extinguishers, and you're supposed to put it out. And the first time you do that, you're like, oh. And then after you do it 2 or 3 more times, you're not afraid of it. And another part of that training was they had about 5.5 feet, 6 feet off the ground, some piping with holes in it, and they were pumping gasoline through it, and they set it on fire. So you had these flames coming at you, and you had to put that out too. It was a great course, and I'm glad I took it. Actually, I took it twice at 2 different companies. Same company gave the course. So that's safety. Now, in the video, and they show it, and it's a good home thing. If you're cooking at home, assume this is a frying pan. Whenever I do any frying, I have a larger cover that can fit over this and totally cover it. If you ever have a fire like that, the quickest thing is cover it to stop the oxygen from getting there. And luckily, I've never had one, but when I work with dangerous things, I assume the worst and be prepared for the worst. So if something does happen, I'm ready. Now, chemicals are dangerous, a lot of them, and they have various hazards on the label. And here's an explanation of some of the symbols you see. If you ever are driving around and you see either a tank wagon, cars, the trucks that deliver gasoline, or other trucks that have chemicals in them, you'll see these placards. And this is an example. I'm never going to ask this on a test. Ooh, that reminds me. All right, listen up. When I teach, keep the lab and the lecture separate. Whatever we do in lab will never be on a test in the lecture. All my tests for the lecture and the final, any question, the concept behind that question, I'll discuss at least twice in lecture. The lab, a lot of it is stuff you also pertains to what we're doing in the lecture, but I don't give lab quizzes. I don't give a lab final. You do have to do your lab reports. And that way it makes lab more enjoyable for you. Hopefully it will. All right. Now, when we talk about chemicals and how do you know if something's dangerous? By what's called the MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet. Some people call it SDS, but I will call it MSDS. And this is a document that provides information to anybody using that chemical about its hazards, how to deal with those hazards, and its name and other information. And there's various ways. Here we have the NFPA scale where it shows you for different colors what we're dealing with. And that's an important thing. Now, I'm going to show you something that not only for this lab, but for your own personal life is quite useful. In fact, last semester, I had a student email me after I taught this lab a couple weeks later that where she worked, they started talking about MSDS sheets and everything, and nobody there who was listening really understood it except she did, because I had explained it to the whole class. And now when at work, she could help other workers understand what was being explained to them. Now, if you have a chemical and you want to find out how safe is it, how hazardous is it, you look up the MSDS sheet. How do you do that? You go to your favorite browser. In my case, it's Google. And you put in, let me first of all check. Thumbs up, people. Everybody see Google on the screen? Thank you. And what you do is put in the name of the chemical. And I'm going to pick 1,2-butoxyethanol. And then afterward, you put in MSDS. And notice from different organizations, you can see the MSDS sheet. Fisher is a very reputable company. Sigma Aldrich, I've been using for decades. They're probably the best supplier of small amounts of chemicals in the world. They're located in Milwaukee. And let's look at the Fisher one. And this is an MSDS sheet. I've written them. They'll have the name. Here's another name for it. They'll have other names, synonyms. And then they'll give you the different categories. And notice oral toxicity 4, flammable 4. That's pretty dangerous stuff. And hazards, harmful, things like that. Precautions, what you should do if you inhale it, consume it, or get it on your skin. Here again, the components. Again, what are first aid measures? Like generally, a lot of these are standard. If you get it in your eye, they're always going to tell you plenty of water, 15 minutes, which same thing with skin. And here they help for firefighting, accidental release, storage. And here they tell you exposure and personal protection. And OSHA is the Occupation Safety and Hazard Act. And also, and this tells you the different limits of how much you can be exposed before you have serious problems. If you notice, this is 50 ppm, and I always forget what TWA stands for, theoretical something limit exposure. Time weighted average, thank you. And that means over an 8-hour period, you should never be exposed to more than 20 ppm. That tells you other things, physical characteristics and stability, reactivity, toxicity. Notice here, oral to kill you, you got to consume that much per kilogram. But whenever you see any kind of LD50, that usually means it's quite hazardous. Be careful. And it has other information too. So why did I pick this compound? 2-butoxyethanol. How many of you are familiar with the deep water horizon oil spill? Happened about 2010. And being an organic chemist, when I heard about that, first of all, I did calculations and found out the government was lowballing the amount of oil being released into the sea there in the Gulf of Mexico. And then I found out they were using a dispersant, millions of pounds of it, to disperse the oil. I wondered, being an organic chemist, industrial organic chemist, what were they using? And they gave the name of the product. I looked up the product. It was from Nalco, which is now owned by a French company, but then Nalco was located in Naperville. I looked up the MSDS. They had various chemicals, and I zoomed in on one, which was the major component, 2-butoxyethanol. I looked up the MSDS sheet, and the older ones, which this is a newer one I showed you, had caused serious harm to humans and marine life. And it was, when you see an LD50, you know it's quite hazardous. Here they're putting millions of pounds of this stuff into the Gulf of Mexico. That can't be good. So what I did was I was able to contact the Coast Guard, and I got up to the second command, and he said, well, you talk to our chemist, and this was an analytical chemist who was academic, not industrial. And I wasted my time. Oh, it's not that, it's that bad. And because of that, and because I was brought up to be socially responsible, and also because I have knowledge as an organic chemist, industrial organic chemist, I figured I got to take some action. So I called MSNBC. I also contacted New York Times. I also contacted, I think, CBS and a few other TV stations, and let them know this is dangerous. And I don't think I was the only one. And within a day or so, the news organizations were getting out the word, this isn't good. And it took them way too long to stop using it. They'd already pumped in a couple million pounds of this stuff. Well, sad story, workers who were working on the cleanup afterward were getting sick, which is where it was in the MSDS sheet. And interesting story, about 3 years ago, somehow I got in contact with someone who was asking some questions about safety of things. And turns out, I know, I got in contact with a person who had written an article about follow-up on the workers who cleaned up that oil spill, how sick they were, and 10 years later or so, maybe 7 or 8 years later, they were still sick. And he said, the person that really helped me write this article, you should talk to, and I did. And we talked over the phone, and he was actually helped clean up, and he went back and followed up on it. And I showed him the MSDS, and he said, sadly, that happened to me, what was in the MSDS and other workers. You know, they should have not used that. But that's a sad story. I have to tell a true story. But MSDS sheets are your friend. If you buy something like a cosmetic or something like that, and you see a chemical name on there you're not sure of, look up the MSDS sheet, and you can find out, well, should I be taking that stuff or shouldn't I? Yep, not what I want. All right, now, if you notice here, for the safety lab, I have your name, and here's some questions for you to answer. And I've gone through most of this. And here I have you look up on the MSDS sheet, you can find out the NFPA rating, health rating for these chemicals. Then I ask you which one of these is the most hazardous. This is due next Thursday by 11:30 by uploading it to the assignment area. Now, you can either print out these last 2 pages. You don't have to print out the rest of it to hand it in. If you don't have a printer, relax. All you have to do is write your name at the top, a piece of paper. Then question 1, you don't have to rewrite the question, put your answer. Now, one of the important things for this class, both labs, tests, and the final exam is, I want you to upload it to the assignment area as a PDF file. Now, if you have a scanner at home, most scanners nowadays, notice my printer right up there, this new one has a scanner. I have another older scanner over there, will make PDF files. What if you don't have a scanner? Oh no, relax, relax. And sorry about the picture quality. Hold on, let me try something. Part of having this older camera, but I'll be working on improving this next couple of days. But anyways, if you look, and let's go there. If you look on Blackboard, I have a right over here, and let me just check. Everybody see Blackboard on their screen? Thank you. Well, Zoom's being nice to me, sort of. You'll see over here PDF instructions. If you click on that, you'll see I have instructions for submitting tests and lab reports, both a Word document and a PDF file. And then there's this free app you can use for your cell phone, which is called Cam Scanner. And just get the free one. Don't spend any money. And it works. I've been using it, or I should say my students have successfully been using it for 2.5 semesters. Why half? Because last spring, halfway through, when the schools shut down, or I should say closed, and we went online, I had to find it. Another faculty member taught me about this, and students started using it this summer, last fall, both at this school and the other. Those who didn't have scanners, this works perfectly. And again, in Blackboard, right here in this side panel, if you click on PDF instructions, it takes you here, and here's instructions how to do that. All right, any questions so far? All right, now let's talk about Labz, beyond Labz. Last summer, we used another product we tried, virtual lab, called Labster, and that didn't work out too well at all. Oh, what a headache. I had trouble doing those labs. If I had trouble, you know, it was a headache. So last semester, we tried home lab kits, and that didn't work out, and I had a way around it. Don't tell the department. But anyways, this semester we're using Beyond Labz, which is pretty good. In fact, I've been in contact with Beyond Labz. I'm trying to get them to hire me as a consultant to help improve their product. We'll see where that goes. But so far, it's not that bad. Now, where do you buy Labz? Because of contractual obligations, meaning I get sued if I told you anything else, you get it through the bookstore. And if you haven't gotten it yet, they'll send you the code in the mail. Why you can't download it, I don't know. It's not my responsibility. Relax. You don't need it until next week sometime, and even into the following week. So you got plenty of time if you haven't ordered it. Now, let's go to Beyond Labz. Let me get out of. All right, does everybody see Beyond Labz login on your screen? Thank you. Now, if you have to register, please use your COD email if you didn't, anyways. And I'm not going to do that because I already registered. I'm going to log in. Now, this confused me for a while, where after you've logged in, where it says download, if you haven't when you're starting, you need to download some things. I'm not going to do that. And after you've downloaded, it takes you back to here, and you have to use the connect right here. And what this does is it puts some software on your computer, and here you have Beyond Labz. Everybody see chemistry, organic, biology. Now, these are the ones I installed because I wanted to look at other stuff. But what you should install is the chemistry. I'll put this in an email. The physics lab, yes, we'll do one from physics, and the physical science. Again, you should install chemistry, physics, and physical science, both middle and high school for physical science, and high school and higher ed, and chemistry, high school and higher ed. Now, if you look at the top here, we have labs and activities. Now, the activities, and this is where they need to improve on, you got to start finding things like if you're looking for a certain lab, you go here and here, the very like flame test. And if you notice, I had to dig down hard to do that. Good news, you don't have to do that. I have downloaded all the PDF files for that, and that I will attach to each assignment for each lab, the PDF file from Labs, Beyond Labz you need. I assume every student who's in my class has purchased the license from Labz. By the way, it's cheap. It's only about 30 something dollars from the bookstore. If we were at COD face to face, you'd one have to buy goggles. That's about $5 to $10. And two, you'd buy a lab book. And I think they're about $50 or so. So you're saving $20. Plus you're saving money because you're not buying the book. So now, one other thing Labz has that you should consider if you're ever having problems, besides contacting me, is they have what's called the community login. And this is a place where if you have need any help, you log in and you actually have to sign up separately. Even though you signed up for Beyond Labz and got the license, you still have to sign up here. I don't know why, I complained about it. And you can log in. And if you have any problems, you can go to onboarding and help, put in your problem. And the woman who's running that, Heather, does a fantastic job. And this is somewhere, if you need help, you can go. You can also go to Dr. White. It bounced me out again. Yep. Now, when you're doing a lab, everybody see this okay? Let me do this. Next week, you're going to do the density lab. So in higher ed, you'll open this, and this instructions is in the PDF. And now where it says density, I'm going to click on that. And here we have the lab. Can everybody see the lab now?
I can't. You're still on the like page with chemistry, biology, and all. Oh,
Now
no.
can you see it?
Yep.
All right, it didn't switch over. Thank you for letting me know, Ann. All right, now I'm going to teach you how to use this, but it's really fun to play with. Remember, I'm a chemist. Now over here, and I'll teach you this, how do you fill up a graduated cylinder? We're going to do it. You click on half, and I'll teach you for each lab how to do this on your own. And then, let's see, we want to go to water. Notice how I can go to different solvents, acetone, alcohol, and it makes funny noises, swishing. And now I have water. And to fill this graduated cylinder halfway, I click on half and fill. And if you notice, it's full or half full. And if I click on this right here, you can see the reading. And I'll teach you how to do this next week. And if you take a sample like nickel, I can put it on the balance and I can weigh it and record a weight. You have to write this down. Then I'll move the filler over. I'll put it above here. Sometimes it doesn't like to. And now it's in here. And watch what happens when I drop it. The volume's gone up, and I'll teach you about this. And this is a way of measuring density, which I'll teach you next week. And this is one of the labs. Now, to get rid of the liquid, they have a little flush valve here, and it's empty, ready for the next one. And this is next lab. Now you know I'm a chemist because I'm having, is that cool or is that cool? Labster was a total nightmare to do stuff like this. Now this is one of the labs. Let's look at another one, just have some fun. If I open up chemistry and I now know in lab Z, if we do, oh, let's try gases, which we'll do later. Oh, let's go inorganic. And again, each one of these labs in the lab itself, and here we got our inorganic. Everybody see the test tube box here? Okay. And watch, this is cool. Come on, be nice to me. I put a test tube in there. Now, if I want to fill it with, say, silver chloride, I'll click on the AG up here and notice it's got silver chloride. And we can do various things, and this is one of the labs we'll do later in the semester. We can do a flame test, and notice right here, it didn't change that much, and we'll do another one. And now if I put in, notice over here, I have sodium chloride. See how this is clear right here? If I put sodium chloride in, oh no, chemical reaction happened and it's cloudy. Is that neat? Now, if I want to get rid of this, I drag it over to the garbage. Normally in the lab, we'd be cleaning this out and pouring this in the waste. And this I haven't always got, you got to align it and it goes in the garbage. Now you're ready for the next lab. And let's do this one. Oh, let's put strontium chloride in there. It's clear. Let's do the flame test. And notice it gives you a red flame. Is that cool or not? And so this works pretty good. Now I haven't used it, but here's a nose to smell things with. And we have other things we can use for this lab. And it's sort of hidden, but to go back, you can hit exit. And if I go to titrations, everybody see the little bell here? And okay. And this is called a burette. And you can go to the storeroom and say, no, I don't want that one. Let's say no, I don't want that. Sodium hydroxide solution. And I'll take hydrochloric acid. And now I'll return, and notice they're up here on the shelf for you to use. And if you want, you can open up and get a beaker, put it out, close the drawer. I can take this and pour some in there. And then I can take this and fill this burette. Let's do another beaker under here. Dr. White's having a lot of fun, and you will too. And if you look here, and I'll teach you when we do lab with this, you can see the volume where it starts. And here's a little valve on the burette, and I can add liquid to that. This is called a titration, and you can do it very slow, drop-wise, faster, or as we say, shotgun it in. And I'll be teaching you for the titration labs how to do that. And that's beyond Lab Z. Now, the actual labs you'll do alone at home. I don't have to have you sit here wait for everybody or finish it during this time frame, because you'll have the ability to do it at home on your computer via the internet. And guess what? I'm finished. If you have any, normally, like I said, and we haven't finished, or I usually give students time. Next week, I'll start out spending about 30 minutes or so going through the problem set for chapter 2. Then I'll show you do my introduction for the density lab, and then we'll be done. I'll stick around if there are any questions. And like I said, you'll get out early. And with that, I'm done for today. I should point out later today, I'll post yesterday's lecture. Also sometime today or tomorrow or Saturday, I'll post this also in my YouTube channel. Any questions? With that, what? I have, yes.
Are we doing anything on Beyond Lab Z this week, or is it just kind of filling out that one paper?
Nope, just filling out the questions in the paper. The reason I did that is some people don't have their code yet. And also, and it happens if we were face-to-face, some people hadn't bought the lab book. And that's why we never, the first lab like this, do anything experiment-wise. But all you have to do is fill out that sheet and upload it by next Thursday. Thank you for your question. Any other questions? Well, the question is, how do you know where you're going to have a sheet, my lab, of the things you're going to have to do in the handout? Like one of them would be due to density of, like I did nickel. Another one, I'll have you do the density of alcohol. And Labz's done a good job, which we also do in the lab. You have unknowns. And so you'll have a list of things you have to do, and you'll do them. So you'll know you have to do like the density of say alcohol, the density of nickel, I may have palladium, and the solid unknown and the liquid unknown. And that's how you know you're done. You'll see it. All right. It should work on a MacBook. I have no idea on Safari. What I highly recommend once you get in, uh, log into the community section of Beyond Labz, and to help, ask them. Heather's pretty knowledgeable. I will say one of our students had trouble with Chrome. If you have a certain older Chromebook, the Google Play Store app doesn't work on there. And COD has some extra computers, I don't know how many now, through the library that you can take out and use for the semester. So I guess the question would be, what I would do is try Safari on your MacBook. I personally am a Firefox person, and I'm also a PC person. Now, my older sister's a Mac person, and for many years we've had the argument whose is better. And I like mine, she likes hers, and we've decided to have a truce.
And then as
So, one sec, somebody just came through. Amber, it does work on a Mac. Amber, in your Mac, we're using Safari or another browser? And whoever else had that question, pop in, go ahead and ask it.
for the actual labs, we'll obviously get like a step like sheet, like a list of steps on how to actually do the labs, right?
There'll be a procedure. Part of it will be in, they'll be on Labz. Part of it will also be in my handout. The way I do labs is I don't want students to be frustrated. It's not fun, and labs should be fun. And therefore, you'll see the first lab is not indicative of what I do, but you'll see various things. I have to modify it for Beyond Labz, but last semester I wrote a density lab. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Hang in there. Now, this one I have to modify because you will be doing Beyond Labz. And I'll change the number 2. Everybody see density lab on your screen? All right, this is the handout. I'll be modifying it. And I have a little discussion. I have some YouTubes where you can learn about things, how to use a graduated cylinder. I'll still show you, and how to measure a volume of a solid. Then here I'm going to modify this because last semester we didn't have a virtual. Instead of octane, I'll put the alcohol weight of the, and here you'll do this in a beaker. And then here I had a diamond, but I gave them data. And then instead of a rubber stopper, I'll have like nickel from here. And part 3, an unknown, which you'll do in Labz. I'm going to modify this. and then I'll have my questions. And for each lab, I will provide you one of these plus the Beyond Labz instructions. And that way, it will make it enjoyable. And does that answer your question? You guys are worth the extra work because it makes me happy when you guys are happy, because it makes me happy and I like to be happy. So if there's any other questions?
Yeah, if after completing that, those exercises, we just leave them there, or we
No,
have to upload them on Blackboard.
Right, good question. First of all, if you don't have a printer, you write down what data you have to put in part 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you can write down question 1, your answers. If you have a printer, print that out and write it on the sheet. Next, what you do is if you have a scanner, scan it, create a PDF file, and upload it to the assignment area. I will be putting each week an assignment area for the lab up. Next week will be lab number 2, density. And I'll have that to download, what you just saw. I'm going to modify it for Beyond Labz. And then you'll upload it to that area. Do not email it to me. Now, if you don't have a scanner, as I mentioned earlier, you can use Cam Scanner. And there's another way I also have how you can take JPEG pictures. And if you have a PC, and I think it works on a Mac too, but don't quote me on that, is you can combine it and create a PDF file. And that's in the instructions I showed you earlier, where you can find those instruction sheets to download from Blackboard. And then you create the PDF file. In the instructions, I tell you how to name it, put your name and the lab number, and then upload it. And that's how you do it. Last semester, students had no trouble. Last summer, no trouble. Well, I had one person who had some trouble. I had to help that person, and it's a technology thing. And if you're not comfortable with technology, that happens, and I'm here to help. All right, other questions? Going once, going twice.
Thank you.
Well, with that,
Thank you.
Sorry,
I'm going to
Dr.
say,
White.
I'm going to stick around for a second. For those who don't want to stick around, I'm going to do my world famous log off, and that's, I'm done. Gehen gesund, be safe. I'll see you on Monday because you don't have lab tomorrow. You had it today, and I'll stick around here for a while. But gehen gesund, be safe, and stay warm. It's cold out there.